I just finished my third playthrough of Alan Wake 2, and I still don't think I've understood everything. But here's the wild part. The moment it clicked for me, I realized Remedy just made something that shouldn't have worked at all. This is a 13-year-long wait, culminated into one of the most ambitious horror experiences ever made. And somehow, in 2026, it's still standing head and shoulders above most horror games out there. Let me break down why. Before we dive in, I need to put this into perspective. Alan Wake 2 was in development for over a decade. The first game came out in 2010. I'm talking about a different era of gaming entirely. The developers at Remedy could have played it safe. They could have made a straightforward action horror sequel, cashed in on nostalgia, and moved on. Instead, they looked at what horror games were doing in 2023 and made something that felt completely different from its predecessor. It's a survival horror game. It's a psychological thriller. It's also kind of a meta commentary on storytelling itself. But most importantly, it works on nearly every level.
Let's set the stage. 13 years. That's how long Alan Wake has been missing. The original game ended with him sacrificing himself to save his wife Alice, trapping himself in this nightmare dimension called the Dark Place. 13 years in there, which would drive anyone absolutely insane. Meanwhile, in the real world, Bright Falls, Washington is experiencing some seriously messed up things. A series of ritualistic murders, people possessed by some shadowy force, and the FBI is sending in their best agent to investigate, Saga Anderson. The game brilliantly intercuts between Saga's investigation in the real world and Alan's desperate attempt to escape from the Dark Place. And here's where it gets interesting. The game constantly suggests that Alan's story is literally writing reality for Saga. It's like Alan is writing a horror manuscript that's coming true. You're never quite sure what's real and what's fiction. Is Saga actually investigating a murder, or is she a character in Alan's story? That ambiguity, that's the entire core of this game. What makes the narrative so good is that it never holds your hand. You find manuscript pages scattered throughout the world. You read live-action interviews with characters. You watch film noir segments. You piece together evidence on Saga's detective board. The story unfolds in fragments, and putting it together becomes this satisfying puzzle. By the end, the twist is genuinely mind-bending in a way that respects your intelligence as a player. No cutscene explains everything for you. You're actively participating in figuring out the mystery.
The characters are exceptional. Saga Anderson, played by Courtney Hope, is a fully realized protagonist. She's grieving, driven, and absolutely convincing. She carries weight. She's not some one-dimensional action hero. She's a person trying to solve a puzzle that doesn't follow normal rules. And Remedy cast this perfectly. Alan Wake himself, voiced by Matthew Peretta, comes back transformed. 13 years of isolation in a nightmare dimension hasn't broken him. It's made him sharper, more aware of his power, and also more unhinged. The character development from the first game is tangible. Then you've got supporting characters like Detective Casey, the cult members, and these strange NPCs that exist in the margins of the story. Remedy is known for strong writing and character work, but this might be their best cast yet. The live action sequences, yes, actual filmed actors in a video game, are shot with such care that they feel cinematic, not cheap or gimmicky. Now, let's talk gameplay, because this is where Alan Wake 2 makes a bold choice. It's not an action game. It's a survival horror game. Your ammo is limited. Health items are scarce. Every encounter matters. When you play as Saga, you're exploring the Pacific Northwest around Bright Falls. Dark forests, small towns, abandoned locations. The game moves slowly and deliberately. This isn't a sprint. It's a methodical crawl through dread. The atmosphere is absolutely suffocating. The sound design? Oh my god. The sound design is half the horror experience here. Every crack of a branch, every whisper, every strange ambient noise makes you uncomfortable. Combat encounters are sparse, which sounds like a negative, but trust me, it's brilliant. When you do face enemies called the Taken, they're genuinely threatening. They hit hard, they're fast, and because combat isn't constantly happening, when it does, your heart rate actually spikes. You're not numbed to it like in action games. Saga's unique mechanic is her mind place, her mental detective space. You bring evidence here and you construct theories about what's happening. It's kind of like a detective board on steroids. You connect clues and matching the right evidence opens up new leads. It's not complicated mechanically, but psychologically it makes you feel like a detective piecing together a conspiracy. The game never punishes you for incorrect theories, which keeps the flow going, but the satisfaction of connecting the right dots is genuine.
Alan's story is where things get properly weird. He's trapped in the dark place, which is basically a twisted version of New York City filtered through his nightmares and trauma. It's visually stunning and deeply unsettling at the same time. Alan's primary ability is his writer's room. This is an interior space where he can rewrite reality itself. You find manuscript pages throughout the levels, and you can use them to reshape the environment. You need to move across a flooded floor? Right, that the water is frozen. You need to open a path, right, that a wall never existed. It sounds abstract, but in practice, it's incredibly satisfying. The writer's room becomes this puzzle space where you're literally manipulating the environment through narrative, which again feeds into the meta theme of the game. There's also the angel lamp, this mysterious light source that Alan can carry. By moving the light, he illuminates different paths and reveals secrets. Some of the most memorable moments in the game involve manipulating light and shadow to navigate through reality-bending environments. What's brilliant is that both Saga and Alan's campaigns are interwoven. You can swap between them at almost any time after the prologue. This creates this amazing episodic rhythm where you bounce between their perspectives, and events in one campaign directly impact the other. The convergence of their stories in the final act is masterfully executed.
Combat is probably the most divisive aspect of Alan Wake 2, so let's break it down. Your core strategy against enemies is always the same. Shine light on them to strip away their shadowy armor, then shoot them. That's it. The core mechanic never fundamentally changes. Some people criticize this as repetitive, and fair enough, there's a valid point there. But I'd argue Remedy knows exactly what they're doing. Combat in this game is meant to be tense and uncomfortable, not exhilarating. The dodge mechanic is intentionally clunky. Alan isn't an action hero, he's a writer. The weapons don't feel satisfying in the way a God of War or a Resident Evil game might. They feel heavy and awkward in your hands. But here's what I love. Enemy variety actually increases as you progress. Early on, you're mostly dealing with basic Taken, possessed humans, but later you encounter more horrifying variants, the paint creatures in the DLC, different enemy types that require different approaches. The boss fights are genuinely challenging and memorable. Scarcity is the real mechanic here. You're constantly weighing whether to fight or run. Sometimes the best option is actually to sprint past enemies. Resources management creates tension without needing constant combat. It's survival horror done right. Most modern games don't have the guts to make combat feel dangerous and uncomfortable. Visually, Alan Wake 2 is absolutely stunning. This game was built on Remedy's Northlight engine, and it's a technical showcase. On PC with ray tracing and path tracing enabled, this is legitimately one of the most impressive looking games ever made. The lighting is phenomenal. Every surface reflects light realistically. The foliage is dense and complex. Character models are detailed. On consoles, there are compromises, obviously. The PS5 and Xbox Series X offer two modes: quality at 30 FPS with better visuals, and performance at 60 FPS with lower resolution. Most areas run stably, though there are occasional frame dips. The PS5 Pro version added ray tracing to the quality mode and improved the performance mode to 4K, which looks noticeably sharper. Xbox Series X is actually the most consistent performer, with near-locked 60 FPS in performance mode, which is impressive. Series S gets the shaft, but still looks respectable if you manage expectations.
PC is where this game truly shines. With an RTX 4090 and max settings, you can hit 4K 60 plus FPS with full path tracing using DLSS 3.5. It's absolutely breathtaking. The ray trace reflections on wet surfaces, the volumetric lighting and fog, the global illumination, this is what next generation looks like. But here's the thing, even at lower settings, the art direction carries the visuals. The atmosphere, the color grading, the environmental design, it's all so intentional that even if you're playing on lower graphics, the impact is still there. The game doesn't require top-tier hardware to be effective. It just looks even better when you have it.
Since launching in October 2023, Alan Wake 2 received 2 major DLC packs. The first was Night Springs, which released in summer 2024. This is basically a collection of 3 Twilight Zone-style episodes set in the multiverse. One episode with Rose Mahabir from Control, another with an alternate version of Jessie Faden where she never got superpowers, and a third pure chaos story that's completely ridiculous in the best way. Night Springs is short but charming. It leans into the weirdness and doesn't take itself too seriously. Some people loved it, others felt it was too brief and gimmicky. Personally, I think it's a fun palate cleanser. The Lake House, released in October 2024, is the more substantial DLC. You play as FBI agent Kieran Estevez investigating an FBC facility at Cauldron Lake. It's basically survival horror meets control investigation thriller. It features new enemy types, new weapons, and it properly builds connections between Alan Wake and Control. If you're invested in the Remedy connected universe, this universe where Control, Alan Wake, Quantum Break, and Max Payne all exist, the Lake House is essential. It teases Control 2 in ways that'll make you desperate to play it. The Lake House is roughly 3 to 4 hours of solid content. It's the stronger DLC because it takes the formula seriously instead of playing with concepts. It also came with an anniversary update that added substantial accessibility options, including infinite ammo and difficulty assists for players who wanted to experience the story without the mechanical challenge.
So, is Alan Wake 2 worth your time in 2026? Absolutely. It's one of the most ambitious horror games ever created. It respects your intelligence, it trusts you to piece together a complex narrative. It prioritizes atmosphere and storytelling over action spectacle, and it executes that vision better than almost any other modern game. If you love psychological horror, mystery narratives, and games that play with meta concepts about storytelling and reality, this is essential. If you love games like Control or appreciate Remedy's weird creative approach to game design, you've probably already played this, but if you haven't, what are you doing? If you're coming purely for combat and action, this might disappoint you. But if you're willing to engage with what Remedy is attempting, this surrealist, narrative-first approach to horror, you're going to have an experience that stays with you. The technical presentation is stunning, especially on PC. The characters and performances are among the best in gaming. The world design is meticulous and atmospheric. And the story, while convoluted, rewards patience and attention. In a landscape filled with sequels and safe bets, Alan Wake 2 is genuinely special. It's weird, it's ambitious, it could have been a disaster, but instead it's a triumph. Even 3 years after launch, it stands as a testament to what's possible when developers get the resources and creative freedom to realize their vision. If you haven't experienced Alan Wake 2, I genuinely recommend finding a way to do so. It's not perfect, but it's something rare in modern gaming, genuinely original. And in 2026, that might be the highest compliment you can give a game. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more game reviews, and let me know in the comments. Have you played Alan Wake 2? And more importantly, did the story make any sense to you? I'm still not entirely sure I understand the ending, and I've played it 3 times.